recently, something that may have seemed small in the moment, but after it was over, the weight of it began to grow. And now this person is thinking about it a lot. The realization that followed was not comfortable for them. They believe they made a mistake. Not a small mistake. Not something easy to forget, but the kind of moment that stays in someone's mind long after everything has gone quiet. The kind of moment that makes someone sit there replaying the scene again and again. What exactly happened? Why did I say that? Why did I react that way? The first card appearing here is the Tower. Now this card represents sudden awareness, a moment where someone suddenly sees the truth very clearly. Sometimes people react quickly, without thinking deeply in the moment. Words come out fast. Emotions rise quickly, defenses appear automatically. But later, when everything becomes quiet, clarity arrives. The Tower is that moment. The moment where someone suddenly stops and realizes something important. This person may now be thinking, why did I handle that the way I did? Something about the situation with you may now be bothering them. Maybe they spoke too quickly. Maybe they reacted emotionally. Maybe they tried to protect themselves instead of being honest. But whatever happened, the Tower suggests the realization arrived suddenly, and now it's impossible for them to ignore. The next card appearing here is Five of Cups. This card carries the energy of regret. It represents someone looking back at something that already happened and wishing they could approach it differently. This person may now be replaying the moment in their mind, the words that were said, the way the conversation ended, the expression on your face. The Five of Cups often shows someone realizing that their actions created distance where they actually wanted closeness. And that realization can feel heavy, because regret has a way of making someone look at the situation from a completely new perspective. The next card appearing here is Six of Cups. Now this card brings a softer emotional tone. It represents memories, warm memories. While thinking about what happened, this person may also be remembering the moments that felt good between you, the small things. A conversation that flowed naturally, a moment where you both laughed, a time where the connection felt easy and comfortable. The Six of Cups often appears when someone realizes that a connection meant more than they originally admitted, and remembering those moments now may be making the mistake feel even heavier, because they may be realizing something important. What they shared with you was not ordinary. The next card appearing here is the Hermit. This card represents reflection. Quiet thinking. The hermit is someone who steps away from distractions in order to understand their feelings more clearly. After whatever happened recently, this person may now be spending time alone, thinking about everything, thinking about the situation, thinking about you. Sometimes people only understand their emotions when they allow themselves that quiet space, and the hermit suggests that this is exactly where they are right now. The next card appearing here is King of Cups. This card represents someone who feels deeply, but does not always express those emotions easily. On the outside, this person may appear calm, controlled, maybe even a little distant at times, but internally their emotions can be very strong. This person may have had deeper feelings for you than they allowed themselves to admit before, and whatever happened recently may have forced those emotions to surface. The next card appearing here is Two of Cups. This is the card of emotional connection. It represents the moment when someone recognizes that a bond between two people carries real meaning. The Two of Cups is not casual energy. It's recognition. It's the realization that what they felt with you was genuine, not temporary, not imagined, something real. And finally, the last card appearing here is Ace of Swords. This card represents clarity, truth. The moment where someone finally sees a situation exactly as it is. The realization this person experienced recently may have been very direct, almost like a quiet thought that suddenly appeared and refused to leave their mind. Something simple, I handled that wrong. Because sometimes people only understand someone's value when they feel the possibility of losing them. And the message coming through this part is very clear. Something happened recently that made this person stop and reflect deeply. And during that reflection, they realized something major about you, something they didn't fully see before. Now, something else is becoming clear in the energy here. After that realization, after that moment where everything suddenly started making sense, this person didn't just forget about it and move on. Their mind keeps going back to the same place, back to that moment, back to that conversation, back to you. It's almost like the silence after everything happened became louder than the moment itself. And the first card appearing here is Judgment. Judgment is a powerful card. It represents awakening, realization, the moment where someone suddenly understands something they couldn't see before. Sometimes people move through situations with their defenses up. They react, they speak, they protect themselves. But later, when emotions settle, the truth appears. Judgment is that moment, the moment where someone begins to see their own actions clearly. This person may now be asking themselves a very serious question. Did I just make a mistake with someone who actually mattered? Because judgment doesn't appear unless something important has shifted inside someone's awareness. The next card appearing here is the Moon. This card speaks about emotions that were hidden or confusing before. Sometimes people feel something deep inside, but they don't fully understand it at first. They may push the feeling away. They may tell themselves it's not serious. They may try to convince themselves they don't care as much as they actually do. But emotions have a quiet way of revealing themselves, and the Moon suggests that this person may have been confused about their feelings toward you before. Maybe they didn't want to admit how much they were drawn to you. Maybe they were afraid of where the connection could lead. Maybe they tried to keep things light when their heart was actually feeling something deeper. But what happened recently may have forced those emotions into the light. The next card appearing here is Nine of Swords. This card represents overthinking. Restless thoughts, the kind of thoughts that keep someone awake at night. This person may now be replaying the situation again and again in their mind. The words they said, the way you reacted, the way the moment ended, and the more they think about it, the more they may feel a growing sense of pressure inside themselves. Pressure to fix what happened, because the Nine of Swords often appears when someone realizes they may have hurt something they actually care about. The next card appearing here is Page of Cups. Now this card brings a softer energy into the situation. The Page of Cups represents emotional communication. It represents someone who wants to say something sincere from the heart, not dramatically, not aggressively, gently, something simple. I've been thinking about what happened. I didn't mean for things to go that way. Can we talk? The Page of Cups is the beginning of emotional honesty. It's someone lowering their defenses and allowing their heart to speak. The next card appearing here is the Star. This card represents hope, healing. The Star appears when a connection still carries light around it, even after something uncomfortable has happened. This suggests that despite the mistake, the bond between you still holds something meaningful. This person may now be realizing that the connection with you was worth protecting. Sometimes people only recognize that truth when they feel the possibility of losing it. The next card appearing here is Knight of Pentacles. This card represents careful action. The Knight of Pentacles is not someone who rushes impulsively into situations. Instead, they think carefully about what they are doing. This person may now be trying to figure out the right way to approach you again, how to speak to you without making things worse. How to show you that they actually care. The Knight of Pentacles is someone who wants to repair something slowly, honestly, step by step. The next card appearing here is the Lovers. This card confirms something very important. The connection between you carried real emotional meaning. The Lovers appears when someone recognizes that the bond they share with another person is significant. This person may now be realizing something they didn't expect. They care more than they thought they did. What they shared with you was not casual, it mattered. And the final card appearing here is the Wheel of Fortune. This card represents turning points, moments in life where everything begins to shift direction. The wheel suggests that what happened recently may actually become a catalyst, a moment that changes the entire direction of the connection, because the more this person reflects on what happened, the more they may begin to understand something very clearly. They don't want the story between you to end with that mistake. Now, the energy shifts a little here because after reflection, after regret, after all the thinking that has been happening in their mind, something else begins to appear. A realization about you, not just about the mistake, but about who you actually are in their life. And the first card appearing here is the Star. Now, this is a very beautiful card to see in this situation. The Star represents healing, hope, and emotional clarity. It appears when someone begins to understand that a person brought something special into their life, something calming, something genuine, something rare. When this person thinks about you now, they may start realizing how different your presence actually felt. Maybe you were patient with them. Maybe you were understanding when they were confused. Maybe you brought peace into situations where they were used to chaos. And sometimes people don't fully understand the value of that kind of energy until they step away from it. The star suggests that this person may now see you in a different light, almost like they are realizing that you brought something healing into their life. The next card appearing here is Queen of Cups. This card represents emotional depth, kindness, and genuine care. You may have shown this person a level of understanding that they are not used to receiving. Maybe you listened when others didn't. Maybe you cared in ways that felt natural to you, but rare to them. The Queen of Cups energy is someone who loves sincerely. And now this person may be realizing that the emotional energy you offered them was something special, something they shouldn't have taken lightly. The next card appearing here is Six of Pentacles. This card represents balance, fairness, and mutual effort. And this is where another realization begins to appear. They may now understand that you were giving something real into the connection, your time, your attention, your emotional energy. And they may now be questioning whether they gave the same level of effort in return. Sometimes people only realize the imbalance after the moment has already passed. The Six of Pentacles suggests that this person may now be reflecting on how much you contributed to the connection and realizing that what you offered was genuine. The next card appearing here is the Lovers. Now this card brings a deeper emotional understanding. The Lovers appears when someone recognizes that a connection carried real meaning, real attraction, real emotional pull. This person may now be realizing that the bond between you was not something ordinary. There may have been chemistry. There may have been emotional comfort. There may have been a sense of understanding between you. And now, after everything that happened, they may be realizing that connections like that do not appear every day. The next card appearing here is Page of Swords. This card suggests curiosity, observation, and quiet attention. This person may now be thinking about you more often than before, wondering how you feel, wondering if you are upset, wondering if they still have a chance to fix things. The Page of Swords often appears when someone begins watching from a distance, trying to understand the situation before making their next move. They may be paying attention to small details now. The things you say, the way you respond, the way the energy between you feels. The next card appearing here is King of Pentacles. This card represents stability, maturity, and responsibility. And this is another important realization happening inside this person. They may now feel that they need to approach the situation differently, more maturely, more responsibly instead of reacting emotionally. They may now be thinking about how to show up in a more grounded way. Because the King of Pentacles understands the value of something real, and that may be exactly what this person is beginning to see now. The next card appearing here is Temperance. This card represents balance, patience, and emotional harmony. Temperance suggests that even though a mistake happened, the connection itself may still have the ability to find balance again. But balance requires honesty. It requires someone being willing to admit when they were wrong. And this person may now be moving toward that realization. Because the final card appearing here is Knight of Cups. This card represents someone who follows their heart, someone who wants to express something sincere. The Knight of Cups does not hide behind pride forever. Eventually, the heart becomes louder than the ego. And that may be exactly where this person is heading now. Because after everything they have been thinking about, after all the reflection, after all the realizations, they may now feel a strong desire to say something to you. Something honest, something emotional. That the connection with you mattered more than they realized before. Now, the energy begins to move in a new direction. Because after all the thinking, all the reflection, all the realizations that have been slowly forming in this person's mind, something else begins to appear. A feeling not just regret anymore, but a growing awareness that something important still exists between you. And the first card appearing here is the Knight of Cups. This is a very emotional energy. The Knight of Cups represents someone who is guided by their heart, someone who may have tried to hide their feelings before, but eventually reaches a moment where staying silent becomes harder than speaking. This person may now feel that there are things they need to say to you, not out of pressure, but because their heart keeps reminding them that the connection meant something real. Sometimes the Knight of Cups appears when someone starts thinking about reaching out again, not in a dramatic way, but gently, honestly, with the intention of expressing something sincere. The next card appearing here is the Sunday. Now, this is one of the most positive cards in the entire tarot deck. The Sunday represents happiness, warmth, emotional clarity. When this person thinks about you, they may now be remembering the positive energy you brought into their life. Your presence may have made them feel lighter, more relaxed, more open. The Sunday often appears when someone realizes that another person brought genuine joy into their world, and sometimes that realization only becomes clear after a mistake happens, because distance has a way of showing someone what they truly valued. The next card appearing here is Eight of Cups. This card represents emotional awareness. It shows someone looking at their situation and recognizing that they can no longer pretend everything is fine if something important is missing. This person may now be realizing that ignoring their feelings is no longer working. The connection with you may still be present in their mind, still present in their heart. And the Eight of Cups suggests that they may now be ready to face those emotions honestly. The next card appearing here is Justice. Justice represents truth, accountability, and emotional balance. This card often appears when someone begins to understand their responsibility in a situation. This person may now be recognizing their role in what happened, recognizing that the way they handled things may not have been fair. Justice energy encourages honesty, and honesty may soon become very important in the next step of this connection. Because sometimes when someone realizes their mistake, the only way forward is to acknowledge it. The next card appearing here is Two of Cups. This card returns again in the reading, and that repetition is meaningful. The Two of Cups represents emotional connection between two people, mutual recognition. A bond that carries sincerity. The fact that this card appears again suggests that the emotional connection between you still exists beneath everything that happened. Mistakes can create distance, but they do not always erase genuine feelings. And this person may now be realizing that the bond they share with you still holds importance. The next card appearing here is Page of Cups. This card represents emotional messages, small, sincere expressions of feeling. Sometimes it begins with something simple, a message, a conversation, a moment of honesty. The Page of Cups often appears when someone gathers the courage to express something from their heart. Not perfectly, but sincerely. And the final card appearing here is the Wheel of Fortune. This card represents change, turning points, moments where the direction of a situation begins to shift. The wheel suggests that what happened recently may not be the ending of the story. Instead, it may become the moment that changes the path of the connection, because sometimes mistakes lead to realizations, and realizations lead to actions, and the message coming through this part is very clear. This person may now be understanding something they didn't see before, that the connection with you was more meaningful than they realized, and that understanding may soon push them toward doing something important, trying to change the direction of the story between you. And now we arrive at the final energy of this reading. After everything that has appeared so far, the realization, the regret, the reflection, the memories, and the understanding that slowly grew inside this person, one final message becomes clear. Something inside them has changed, not suddenly in a dramatic way, but deeply. The first card appearing here is the Star. And this card carries a very gentle but powerful meaning. The Star appears when someone begins to see hope again in a situation that felt uncertain. This person may now be realizing that the connection between you still holds something beautiful, something that deserves care. Sometimes the Star appears when someone recognizes that another person brought healing into their life. You may have been someone who listened, someone who understood, someone who showed kindness in moments where they expected distance, and now after everything that happened, they may be realizing how rare that energy actually is. The next card appearing here is King of Cups. This card returning again confirms something very important. This person's emotions for you run deeper than they originally admitted. They may have tried to stay calm. They may have tried to appear controlled. They may have tried to keep their feelings quiet. But the King of Cups represents someone who feels deeply, and the more they reflect on the connection, the more those emotions may begin to surface. Sometimes feelings become clearer only after someone risks losing the person who inspired them. The next card appearing here is Temperance. This card represents healing, balance, and emotional harmony. Temperance suggests that even though something uncomfortable happened, the connection itself still carries the possibility of finding peace again, but peace requires honesty. It requires patience. And sometimes it requires someone to admit when they were wrong. Temperance is the energy of two people slowly finding their balance again. The next card appearing here is Knight of Cups. This card represents emotional expression. The Knight of Cups is someone who eventually chooses to follow their heart, even if it feels vulnerable, even if it feels uncertain, even if it requires admitting something they once tried to hide. This person may soon feel the need to say something, to speak honestly, to express what they now understand, because sometimes silence becomes heavier than speaking. And finally, the last card appearing in this reading is the Sunday. This is one of the most beautiful cards to end a reading with. The Sunday represents happiness, warmth, clarity, and emotional truth. It suggests that the connection between you carries a positive energy at its core. The Sunday often appears when something that once felt confusing begins to become clear. And the clarity appearing here is simple. This person realized something important about you. They realized that your presence in their life mattered, they realized that the connection was meaningful, and they realized that the mistake they made showed them something they didn't fully understand before, how much they actually care, because sometimes it takes one unexpected moment, one mistake, one realization for someone to finally see what was standing in front of them all along. And now the question in their mind may no longer be about what happened. The question may now be about what they should do next. The next card appearing here is Justice. Justice represents truth, accountability, and emotional balance. This card often appears when someone begins to understand their responsibility in a situation. This person may now be recognizing their role in what happened, recognizing that the way they handled things may not have been fair. Justice energy encourages honesty, and honesty may soon become very important in the next step of this connection. Because sometimes when someone realizes their mistake, the only way forward is to acknowledge it. The next card appearing here is Two of Cups. This card returns again in the reading, and that repetition is meaningful. The Two of Cups represents emotional connection between two people, mutual recognition. A bond that carries sincerity. The fact that this card appears again suggests that the emotional connection between you still exists beneath everything that happened. Mistakes can create distance, but they do not always erase genuine feelings. And this person may now be realizing that the bond they share with you still holds importance. The next card appearing here is Page of Cups. This card represents emotional messages, small, sincere expressions of feeling. Sometimes it begins with something simple, a message, a conversation, a moment of honesty. The Page of Cups often appears when someone gathers the courage to express something from their heart. Not perfectly, but sincerely. And the final card appearing here is the Wheel of Fortune. This card represents change, turning points, moments where the direction of a situation begins to shift. The wheel suggests that what happened recently may not be the ending of the story. Instead, it may become the moment that changes the path of the connection, because sometimes mistakes lead to realizations, and realizations lead to actions, and the message coming through this part is very clear. This person may now be understanding something they didn't see before, that the connection with you was more meaningful than they realized, and that understanding may soon push them toward doing something important, trying to change the direction of the story between you. And now we arrive at the final energy of this reading. After everything that has appeared so far, the realization, the regret, the reflection, the memories, and the understanding that slowly grew inside this person, one final message becomes clear. Something inside them has changed, not suddenly in a dramatic way, but deeply. The first card appearing here is the Star. And this card carries a very gentle but powerful meaning. The star appears when someone begins to see hope again in a situation that felt uncertain. This person may now be realizing that the connection between you still holds something beautiful, something that deserves care. Sometimes the star appears when someone recognizes that another person brought healing into their life. You may have been someone who listened, someone who understood, someone who showed kindness in moments where they expected distance, and now after everything that happened, they may be realizing how rare that energy actually is. The next card appearing here is King of Cups. This card returning again confirms something very important. This person's emotions for you run deeper than they originally admitted. They may have tried to stay calm. They may have tried